Lynn, for that introduction. Adiak ang mono onto yang di asay ina yan wadad manhayan, di asay ina yan wadad bugyas. But yes, both my parents trace their roots from Mankayan. They met in Bugyas. They manufactured me in Bugyas. I was born there, and my umbilical cord was buried there. And most of my life events who molded me to who I am today is happened in Bugyas. So, wala din kang kananta ko your connection to 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐻𝐿 di pusog. So I identify myself more as Bugyas, Kankana-ey from the Bugyas, and my Kankana-ey is more on the Bugyas Kankana-ey. But although there is very slight similarity between the Kankana-ey of Bugyas and Mankayan. So, Adwani ay masdum this afternoon. Adiyo isisiyupan sakun. Kindly bear with me as I will be sharing to you a paper which is also considered as a panrugrugian actually in the in this endeavor, panrugrugian in language documentation. So I have the working title, Classifying the Pragmatic Particles in the Kankana-ey language. So first, I would like to bring you to a short introduction of language documentation based on my orientation since we were involved in these types of activities as was mentioned earlier since 2019. So language documentation is creating recordings of many different aspects of a language and the ways it's used, including the other languages used by speakers. So ideally, in language documentation, we use professional recording equipment, video or audio, because especially in the Philippines, we know very much that many of our indigenous languages are oral languages for quite a long time. So we do not expect to be coming up with a lot of written material. So we do recordings. And we also, language documentation is also keeping language data in an archive, so it will last a long time. And studying the language and ways it's used. So it's not just merely coming up with a repository or an archive data, but it's also on studying how the language is used. So as we go through, I would like to pose the following questions. Although these questions were answered in the rationale in the presentation of Dr. Tulay and also the presentation of Sir John Ray a while back. And to our participants online, we would also love to hear from you if you have insights. Kindly drop them in the comment box. We'd love to hear from you. So why does your language matter to you? Or maybe even a basic question, does your language matter to you? So, and why? So, why do languages matter to the people around you, in your family, in your community, and in your country? And what parts of your language do you most want to safeguard for the future? What part of our language? Is it in the lexicon? Is it in the, is it in the grammar? Yes, the vocabulary, yan. So, mga pag-iisipan po natin as we go through. Okay, so moving on with language documentation, I have here figures from references. So there are 7,000 languages spoken worldwide. And there are 370 indigenous group of people in the world. And we have 90 countries with indigenous communities. We also have 5 different indigenous cultures and 2,680 languages endangered. So the term that we will be using as we continue is the word endangered. Okay, so given with the data, so with the about 7,000 languages around the world, 96 of all languages are being spoken by 4% of, 96% of the global population and 4% of all the languages. And most of them are used by very many people. So most of the languages in that about 7,000 are spoken not by many people. And we know very much how the number of speakers can revitalize, endanger, or popularize the language. So here, in language documentation, there were efforts that were put forward. So internationally, there is the UNESCO's recognition of the crucial importance of language. So in 2019, that was declared as the International Year for Indigenous Languages. But then with that, it was extended. It was initially was declared as a year, but now it was declared as a decade. So from 2022 to 2032, that is the decade for International Decade of Indigenous Languages. We are now in the second year of that decade. So the declaration is anchored on that the International Decade of Indigenous Languages was anchored on the proclamation of the Year of the Indigenous Language in 2019. That was in Paris. So anchored on the mantra, Indigenous languages matter for development, peace building, and reconciliation. So to be able to attain the other goals, sustainable development goals, we have to safeguard our indigenous languages. So with the following objectives, the support for the revitalization and maintenance of indigenous languages to a range of different measures, and then to give access, preservation of indigenous languages, access to education, information and knowledge, improvement of data collection, and sharing of information using technology and other means. And the last objective is on promotion, maintaining the knowledge areas and values of indigenous languages and cultures within broader sociocultural, economic, and political domains. So yun yung mga objectives niya. Now, going back to the word endangerment a while ago. So what is language endangerment? Which push, one of the factors that push this language documentation. About 46 of all languages are currently endangered, according to the Catalog of Endangered Languages, so the 𝐲𝐴𝐵. Okay, so the word endangered, a lot of us have heard or have, a lot of us may have thought that the word endangered is associated to animals or plants or any biological species. And there were also debates as to the use of the word endangered in relation to language. So what is language endangerment or endangered means that a language is at risk of no longer being spoken. So the state of being at risk that the language is not to be spoken anymore is there. Then we consider the language as an endangered language. So given that definition, maybe we can take an assessment of our own language. Is the risk present in my own language? Sa Kankana-ey, natupay lang mag-speakers. Okay, and there are many variations. So many hundreds of languages have fallen silent within just the last 60 years. So accordingly, the last 60 years, a lot of languages have gone endangered. Some of them had suffered death. Okay, so what causes the endangerment of a language? Ano kaya? Bakit nai-endanger ang isang language? Bakit nawawala? In the Philippines, maybe we can mention of endangered language. Can you name an endangered language in the Philippines? Nasa close to dying already. araw, okay? So, kumukunti na yung mga speakers. Yung mga elders na nagsasalita nito, they're dying, and the language is not being passed on to the younger generation. Okay, so sabi ni Swadish, the factors determining obsolescence of a language are non-linguistic. So, the obsolescence of the language is not because of the linguistic feature of the language itself. It's not because they are too complicated or they are too simple. So, tayo nga mabaling we cannot learn that language because it is too difficult. Given the case of a child, any child who will be exposed to a language, we have learned that from Chomsky and other linguists, that if you're going to expose a child to a language, no matter how difficult that is, there's the language acquisition. Other language or more logical or prettier. Meron bang ganun? Although we can give comments na lambing nga yung Ilocano. The Ilocano language is malambing as compared to Bontok Kankana-ey, sorry. But maybe it has something to do with their tone. Okay? So, yun. Meron bang language na more logical and prettier? No. They're primitive or not fit to the modern world. So, given the characteristic of a language that it is dynamic, it can evolve, it can adapt itself to the progress in development. So we have to remember that email and cell phones are not in the English vocabulary some 50 years or more back, but now we came up with the words for these things. So what causes language endangerment? According to Brumam in 2022, we have the colonization. We know what had happened to our baybayin because of the colonization that happened in the Philippines, our baybayin. And then the globalization or economic. So people would choose to migrate. Political, mga policies, English-only policy. Bakit ba tayo napapunish ng mga nasa basic ed tayo na one word, you have to pay? Kano ba ang punishment? 1 piso. Or we are not being punished, but our parents are the ones being punished because we ask the money from them sa pagsasalita ng ating local language. Okay, social and attitudinal. So social and attitudinal is the attitude of the person. Kaninang umaga may mga lumabas na questions as to what can you say to parents not teaching their children of the local language or of the mother tongue of the parents. Well, my personal take on that is we should not blame the parents because that is their preference, that is their choice. And choice or option is the basic right of a human person. So we do not know their goal, we do not know their purpose, maybe for survival of the kids, because the environment they are living in is an English-speaking environment. Okay, so just very, very little introduction just to make the connection, because Kankana-ey has been comprehensively introduced to us this morning by Ma'am Ronda and Sir Jean-Ray. So, ayan, it is spoken by over 150 people of Central Luzon. Although it is a very popular language among the people of the Cordillera, there were very few written literature discussing its linguistic feature, which is actually the gap that this paper wants to address. So this paper will be a contribution to the scarcity of literature that is discussing the linguistic feature or features of the Kankana-ey language. So it's spoken in the northern part of Benguet, as was mentioned this morning. Ayan. Now, the question is Kankana-ey an endangered language? Yung kakadwa kay Kankana-ey isa. What do you think? Is Kankana-ey an endangered language? Sino matali Kankanan Lulu? Lawa kumaati. And the ancestor, ilan nyo meaning do not make it in danger. It's a warning. Okay? So the answer, according to UNESCO World Atlas of Languages, it is potentially vulnerable. So the risk is there. There's the potential. It was tagged by UNESCO World as potentially vulnerable. So what can we do? What can we do now? We have to challenge ourselves as Kankana-ey speakers because we know very well that how much of our culture, how much of our identity is embedded in our language. Hence, we do not want to lose it. So one thing that we can do is language documentation or creating a lasting multi-purpose record of a language. Creating a multi-purpose record of a language. I would like to insert here language dormancy and language death. So a language won't die if there is a lasting record of it. It can go dormant. It may not be spoken for a period of time. But if there is a group of people, there is a community that would want to revive the language, then at least they have references as to when they're going to revive, as to how they're going to revive the language. Okay, so again, going back to the title on pragmatic particles, classifying the pragmatic particles in Kankana-ey, most of the on-site audience here and maybe also the online are familiar with pragmatics as a branch of linguistics. But maybe so we won't be lost in translation. Kasi translation yung topic natin kanina. We try to review. Pragmatics is the study of how context influences meaning. So it focuses on how speakers use language in social situations or putting meaning in context. Okay, so putting meaning in context, meaning that we understand statements, we understand speeches based on our knowledge of the outside world or based on social conventions. So your understanding of a certain statement may vary from when you were a child and then as compared to when you are already an adult. Ano ba yan? Okay, so proceed na tayo sa example. Say, can you open the door? Can you open the door? Based on our knowledge of our environment, the way the words were written here and the font styles that were used, we can utter the word sure, our answer, in different tones. Diba? So, paano mababasahin yan? Can you open the door? Sure. Then, sure. Then, a little formal, sure. So, kapag yung kaibigan mo na kabiruan mo, can you open the door? Sure. Then suddenly, anong isasagot sa'yo? Saan daan? Most likely na isasagot sa'yo. The red one, sure. Parang with geniality. Pero, when he became unnecessarily formal and said, sure. Oh, anong nakain nito? May isipin mo anong nakain nito? May issue siya. Ayan. And also, even as language teachers of bakit ba ako nagkakategorize? Say for example, a student will get into the faculty room and say, can I come in? Oh, I don't know. Can you? Or you can, but you may not. So, syntactically speaking, so when you say, can you open the door? We understand that as the ability to open the door. I have arms, I have, and I think it doesn't require a special skill to open the door. So I can. But then, because of pragmatics, that is politeness. It's not a question. Okay, so can you open the door? And Going back to another, so it depends on the depth and breadth of our experience and our knowledge of the outside world. So, kunyari may dalawa kang kausap. Oh, yung bata at yung matanda, a child and an adult. So they have different extent of experiences and knowledge of the outside world. Then bigla mo sasabihin, painin kita dyan. Oh, so matatakot yung bata. So maybe because yung knowledge niya ng kumakain ng tao, kumakain ng bata is zombie or aswang. Pero kung adult yung kinakausap, kainin kita. Then sinagot ka niya ng sure. When? Where? Diba? So, yung context ng dalawa is different. So, different from the context of the child whose innocence and naivety are still intact as compared to the adulterated adult. Adulterated talaga. Okay. So, ayun. Yung mga kabatch ko dyan, mga batang 90s. A famous line, oh yes, kaibigan mo ako. Kaibigan mo lang ako. And I'm so stupid to make the biggest mistake of falling in love with my best friend. Wow. Julina Magdanal to Martin Agustin. Loves Kita, Okay Ka Lang, 1998. Directed by Jerry Lopez Jimenez. Favorite ba yan today? Pero what we're trying to look into the statement of Julina here is, kaibigan mo ako, kaibigan mo lang ako. The addition of lang puts no ones into the statement. Okay, so example sa Tagalog yan. Ayan pa. Sino yan? Si Rico yan ba? Kanino niya sinabi? Kanino sinabi ni Claudine yan at paanong pelikula? Mahal mo ba ako dahil kailangan mo ako? O kailangan mo ako, kaya mahal mo ako? So dahil and kaya. Bala ka dyan. Okay, pero doon nakikita natin kung paano the particles which are small and cannot be fixated parts of an utterance will give nuances to meanings. Sinong tinitignan natin sa pragmatic particles ng Kankana-ey. So meron din yan sa Kankana-ey. Say for example, you are in a group. So there's the group. Magpapaalam yung isa. So, asking permission, amuyak aw, sabi ng isa. Awadi. And then the other one, aw, iman adi. Oh, aw, awadi, aw, iman adi. How is the addition of adi and addition of iman adi change the meaning? So, kung ikaw yung aalis na kamukha ni Matsunaga, kasi gwapo ni Matsunaga, how are you going to interpret? So iba-iba. Iba-iba yung feelings and emotions ng mga kasama mo na iiwanan mo sila. So yung isa, parang casual lang, recognizing your asking for permission to leave. Yung isa naman, awadi, so parang may patutusa or parang giving permission. Iman adi. There is an element of tampo, diba? Parang iman adi tumainan, iman adi tanunggay kaya na, iman adi tanung why date na, mga ganon. Okay, so the examples we have in the English and Tagalog and Kankana-ey. So we look at discourse particles in this definition. Small or uninflected words that are only loosely integrated into the sentence structure. So they are loosely integrated into the sentence structure. For what purpose? To create meaning. And these discourse particles are common in Indonesian and many Philippine languages, including Kankana-ey. That is according to even 2005. So in the general objective of this paper, as I was mentioning earlier, is to contribute to the literature gap. But specifically, this paper wants to come up with a detailed analysis of Kankana-ey pragmatic particles to contribute to the broader field of linguistics, and to come up with a list of particles and then classify this list, and also to present how the semantic roles of these particles can lead to a better understanding of how emotions are articulated in Kankana-ey discourse. So paano natin ma-attain yung objective na yun? When I was doing the paper, we were guided by experts who are linguistic experts, so to speak, from UP Diliman. Thank you to Sir Sam for being the person who introduced us to these people. So ganito yung process na itinuro nila. The language documentation, first on data collection through field work, including audio recording. Sabi nga natin nung una, kailangan mo talagang i-record the actual conversation. So we have here the types of data, the oral narratives. You can ask the person to narrate a story, an elderly. So alam naman natin na kung sino talaga yung mga organic speakers of the language are the elderlies. So, manistorya ka po ay, and the common na ikukwento nila is sinbakwit, sintimpon di hapon, sintimpon di sapon, mga ganon. And you record those kwento. Or from the not so elderly, another strategy that they taught us is that isuro po nun to yatay manutos na. See, the indigenous knowledge and the interplay of the indigenous language and the indigenous knowledge. So a recipe, tuturo. So natural yun kapag ituturo niya natural. So unlike us who are already in the academy, who are exposed to other grammars of other languages, parang meron pa tayong na-overshadow pa rin yung grammar ng local language sa grammar ng languages na natututunan natin. So conversations and written text. What are the written texts available? The Bible, the big books, especially during the 2013 implementation of the MTD-MLP to 2013 onwards, there was the proliferation of the big books. Conversations, natural conversations. And then we are going to create a database of examples. So pag meron ka ng database, you're going to analyze the conversations, making use of role-in reference grammar. So role-in reference grammar used to be a theory, and it was developed into a framework by Robert Benvaling Jr. This RRG was also used by Janet Allen in his book, Role-in Reference Grammar in Kankana-ey. But we are not going to go into the detail of role-in reference grammar because this might cause lesions to our brains, given the span of time that we'll be talking about this. So this is the framework that is to be used. But then in role-in reference grammar, we have different terms there, unlike the way we were taught in analyzing the grammar in English, where we are going to parse the sentence and we have to label them according to subject, predicate, what else? Linking verb and such. But in RRG, they have different terms to identify what is the role of that word in the language. So meron silang terms like oblique, absolutive, genitive, negative, mga ganon. But then the thing here is that we use that to identify if that word is a particle. So only to extract the particles in the database of the language list. Okay, so we have the list analysis. We came up with a list. We add directly to the list. Yan. So far, we have come up with a list of 49 Kankana-ey particles. there were more from the other references, but again, with my bias as a Kankana-ey speaker with a Kankana-ey 𝐓𝐴𝐻𝐿 I try to omit the particles which are not spoken in that area because I think the ones who can better explain their language are the speakers, so they have the authority for that. Ayan. So, as to the order of the words in the list, we created word frequency. So there is an app that is to be used, and it will tally as to how many times this particle was said in an utterance. Kaya yung adi, nangunguna yung adi doon sa frequency, di ba? So, adi. Adi in Mountain Province, Kankana-ey means no. So, kapag sinabi ng taga-bugyas ng adi, kanamay awya, kanamay adi. So, what is that? Parang ninimikate mo yung so adi. So, nangunguna yung adi. So, naging oxymoron. Parang in Kapangan, they say mayat lalawa. Mayat lalawa, tuyat na, mayat yan lawa. So there. So this is an example. We have here a sample sentence where we parse. So to identify if this is an article. Say the question, ay amuyo din accident di kaluod ko gaban. Have you heard about those people who had accident yesterday? And the answer is the ida ut adi. Who is the ida? It is referring to the question whom you are asking, the person whom you are asking the question. The ida ut adi tinangbadang. So if we are going to loosely translate that into English, then we can say they were actually the ones who helped those who had an accident. So that particle can be loosely translated as actually, so indeed. But in another sentence, when you say, ilam adi tas ustumay man eskwela. Ilam adi tas ustumay man eskwela. As compared to ilam tas ustumay man eskwela. Ilam tas ustumay man eskwela. Ilam adi tas ustumay man eskwela. May difference ba siya? Oo, meron. Parang mas may concern kapag inilapat mo yung adi, ilang adi. Okay. So the next is ud. The next in the list is ud. Oh. So ud here can be used to emphasize in interrogative statements. Aisha. So when you say Aisha, you say Aisha ud. Aisha ud. Ay inilam ud. See, there is a difference. Ay inilam ud. So you are probing more when you make use of the word ud. And when you say kut, maga. Ay way ballpen mo, maga. Maga kut. May difference ba? Kapag directly na sinabing maga. Ay way ballpen mo, maga. Other than magakot. Meron siyang difference. Okay, ano yung diferensya niya? Kapag sinabi ng seatmate mo na maga and magakot? Parang mas sincere. Parang may tone pa siya ng apologetic na sorry, awan ngay. Magakot. Awan, kaysa awan. Okay, and then we have mga examples dyan. Ngalod. Katulad ng sabi ko kanina, ngalod. Why ngalod, not ngarod? So as Cordillerans, we know that Ilocano has affected significant influence in our languages, being the lingua franca of the Cordillera. So ngalod is from Ilocano, ngarod. But elderlies, particularly in Bugyas, do not pronounce R. So, pinapalitan nila yun ng L. Pero yung mga younger generations, they can say ngarud, aw ngarud, aw ngalud. Okay, so what is the use of ngalud or ngarud? Oh, so with the statement, manbayad ka, tadi si abang mo, oh, magangalud isipin ko, from the, as compared to magadisipin ko. Pero kapag sinabi mo, magangalud isipin ko, magangalud, parang mas definitive na, wala talaga. Rather than, pag mag-isipin ko, pwede mo pa siyang i-prod ng kan man kalidisipin. Pero pag sinabi, magangalud, parang definitive na siya. Okay? Or, sumaat ako ngalud. We cannot do anything. Parang, ano na yun, surrender. Aw ngalud. Aw, and aw ngalud, or aw ngarud. And then another example here is 𝐓𝐡𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤, which is the contractive form of 𝐓𝐡𝐢𝐴𝐚. But then 𝐓𝐡𝐢𝐴 can be used separately as a word to modify and as a particle here. Like when somebody says, anak daka tutluan amam. There's no doubt, di ba? Anak, there's no doubt. But when you say, anak daka tutluan amam, what is the context in that? Oh, like father, like son, nagmana ka talaga sa ama mo. Kaman katutuan tiksas ay. Kaman katutuan tiksas ay. So what tiksas there is, ano ang tiksas? Panabong. Fine breed of cocks na ano yan, common yan to describe someone who is a taffy. Yun, tiksas, iman mo. Ganon, parang matapang. Attributed to the characteristic of the Texas, which is breed of cocks. Ayan, and Mon, may ano ako dyan, this is Kapangan Kibungan Kankana-ey, inamag Mon, pero sa Bugyas and Mankayan, Muon. So probably the speakers, Kankana-ey speakers from Kibungan and Kapangan can elucidate more on Mon as a particle. Ngata. Ngata is also another borrowed term from Ilocano. So ngata, uncertainty. So it's doubtful. Ay gusto ngata din ibagbagak. Kasi ay gusto ngata din ibagbagak. You have to validate what I am saying here, fellow Kankana-ey speakers. And another is we also have moon. Iamag moon. Mutin. So it's a contract in Mankayan in Bugyas is a contracted form of mutin. Moon. Iamag moon kasi pantako. Baka. Baka is an expression of uncertainty as well, or possibility. Baka mantiuak. Baka kumaanak. Baka nuwang. Sino di baka nuwang? Okay. So maybe. And min or nun. So this is again has something to do with phonology of Kankana-ey and variations. Min, some other Kankana-ey speakers would say min, some other would say nun, with the diacritical mark as well, as we were talking about this morning. Magangan iman di ilako da si kanunda. Instead of saying baka magay ilako da si kanunda, another variation is magangan iman di ilako da si kanunda. Okay, and we also have samot. Samot is another maybe, an uncertainty. Magasamot iman di ilako da si kanunda. I'm not sure, but maybe they don't have didn't have anything to buy food for themselves. And then could. So politeness, we also have could. Although sabi natin parang hindi we do not make use of po o po, manang, manong, but there are terms there are particles in the Kankana-ey language that also express our politeness. Yaning sa, yaning putsa. Oh, yaning sa, yaning putsa. What else? Oh. Oh, iawat, please could I? Please could I? Modernized. And man, iawat mo man sanggab yun. What is the difference in say iawat mo ko sanggab yun and say iawat mo man sanggab yun? Diba? Demanding yung man. As requesting yung good. And then aya is also another borrowed particle from Ilocano, expression of, again, ano yung aya? Is it asking for confirmation? Ay wada ayat in Mali. Ay wada ayat in Mali and Daida. So asking for confirmation. And okay, bow. So an expression of realization. I bow. When you say I bow, meaning there's a realization. Magabaw din, manganta ko. Then you open the kaldero, magabaw din na utos din na kuya. I bow. Ay takot mang mangan. Or I kambaw. Kambaw, I kambaw. That is probably a shorter one, but we have to validate that as differentiated from kambaw, which is to be translated in this context as but then. In the statement, in inapon mi da ida, kambaw ungay 𝐂𝐚𝐧𝐠𝐮𝐚𝐠𝐞𝐬. We've been looking for them, but then they went home already. So, but then yung kambaw 𝐂𝐚𝐧𝐠𝐮𝐴𝐴. Ano pa ba? Marami, nasa 16 pa lang tayo. I would like, titignan natin yung iba. Huwag na natin sigurong tig-isa-isahin kasi baka abutin tayo ng 7:30. Okay. Kayang ana. We also have interjection to express our emotion. Ana. Ana, pinmintas kaya? Ana, pinmando kaya? So parang yun, interjection yun. Like, ana. Ibaloy meron ba? Para. Ado. We also have ado. 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 Adi kan matuog ay? Parang adukas na. Samot si adukas na. Parang come on. And then we also have ayu as an interjection. Ayu, hindi na umakang sika. Ayu. Ayu. Depende yun. Sa parang sa level na ng pagkauma. Ayu. 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 Yun. Oy, ayun sa. Ayun. Ayun kapay. Other interjections, woy, para may display yan, woy. Or may reduplication yun na, woy. Pwede mo ulit-ulitin ng ilang, woy. Reduplication. Depending again on the emotion. Woy, ay si Kasa. Woy. Okay. And then, Allah. Allah also is Ilocano. Okay. Ay dautan. Exasperation. Ay dautan. Parang close to ayo. From I assist. Nagpe-prevail ito sa data na kinuha natin sa mga casual conversations. Sis, what ka, kito yan panang kantiksas. And wah also, wah or wo. I think this is also prevalent in Kankana-ey and Kibungan. Wa, ibaloy, wo, meron din. The list goes on. Tingnan natin kung ano pa yung mga lumabas dito. Ay. Ay, may 𝐾𝐫𝐲𝐲, yung lumalabas kanina. Ay, 𝐾𝐫𝐲𝐲, so with urgency. Gamin from Ilocano. Gayang also from Ilocano. Narod. Ngay from Ilocano as well. Tumot, also Ilocano. Sekarang tumot. Kaiman. Ada kaiman na nung dia. So, kaiman, also a realization. Parang bow, nasa category siya ng bow. Iman. Nakikita natin kanina to, iman, sympathetic. But depending again on the context, like when kung sarcasm, pwede siyang iman. Iman yan? Affirmation or sarcasm. Ayan, yung I and So, meron bang gumagamit ng Ay 𝐾𝐽𝐲. So, yes, yun. Parang nasa, anong tawag natin doon? Base, comparative, and superlative. Ay 𝐾𝐽𝐲. Final na yung very urgent. What Ilocano? Lapit na tayo sa last. In the illustrated example a while back, so is Kankana-ey an endangered language? So other is an expression of warning. Dagos, also an urgency, and ayun, nag-escalate siya. Kailaang, which is from Ilocano. Abu, which is also. Dakayo abu di Inoy. Dakayo abu di Wada. Wada ka abu isa. And then Kuma, which is also Ilocano. And the last in the list is mutlaang or mutlang. So that can be varied to mutlang or mutlaang, also Ilocano. Sinay mutlang. So with the 49 list of the particles, we went into classifying them according to how they are used in different statements or different contexts. So back to and we have to go back to our native speakers for validation. Ayos din Kankana. So we have to explain. Ayos din Kankana ay adi, the meaning na. So they have to validate and they have to affirm. Okay, so with this we came up with 5 classifications like emphasis and uncertainty, apologetic and excited tones, and then expression of sympathy and pity, uncertainty and doubt, surprise and realization. So mostly surprise and realization, sila yung mga interjection, uncertainty, like samot, ngata, baka, and what are the semantic roles? So conveying emotional states. The particles can convey emotional states. They can also facilitate interaction, whether you are going, in what manner are you going to answer the statement previously said, and enhancing expressiveness. So it adds color to the conversation, or it adds color to the dialogue, enhancing expressiveness. So conclusion, which is not definite, Kankana-ey pragmatic particles significantly contribute to emotional expression in discourse by emphasizing certainty, conveying sympathy, reflecting uncertainty, and expressing surprise. Their classification based on function helps illuminate their roles in communication, making them essential tools for understanding interpersonal dynamics within Kankana-ey speaking communities. So, there. Further study, exploring pragmatic particles of the Kankana-ey language, because this paper is too far from perfection. So we have to conduct studies to validate what was recorded here. And employment of other dynamic syntax models to better understand how particles contribute to meaning. And the third one is document your language. Document your language. Let's document our language. Namuanamuaw. That is yaman, thank you. Usually used in Mankayan and Bugis Kankana. Namuanamuaw. Maraming salamat po.